at you all the way from our dorm rooms to your conference rooms. Saba, Ali, and Dan Tiemann here are two college students who are ready to talk to you guys about business and lifestyle from our personal experiences.
Each week we'll discuss about our lifestyle as college students as well as our tips and strategies starting in the business field. We'll bring on successful entrepreneurs in the millennial generation to share with us their journey and how they got started and where they're at now.
Our goal is to help you students, millennials, and entrepreneurs gain inspirational advice by our spontaneous conversations and meaningful guidance. Let's dive on in.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 42 of Dorm Rooms and Conference Rooms. And always on our Friday specials, we have another amazing guest on. And this guest is actually a good friend of ours now for the past 6 months or more. And we've gone through some really good times together. But to start us out, as always, Saba, how are you doing today? It's finally clearing up here in Iowa.
I am doing great. I just got done with one of my finals, but I'm super excited about our guest today just because she actually personally coached me to hit Amazon bestseller for my books. I'm pretty sure she's going to have really great advice today.
Yeah, guys, we have Laura Petersen on. That's Petersen with all E's, no O's, guys. And she's started a tutoring company years ago. And from there, she's grown a podcast. And from there, she's even became an Amazon bestseller herself. And that's just a little bit because I know Laura has so much value to add that I'm going to let her kind of take over from here. Laura, how are you doing today? And let's hear a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. I'm doing great. And I'm so excited to be talking with you guys. I've loved watch you guys start your podcast and grow it and get so many amazing guests. You guys are just rocking it. So amazing job. And of course, Saba hitting Amazon bestseller in 2 categories, number 1. So excited. I love just telling everyone about you as one of my star students.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm in Southern California, so I'm in San Diego. It's a little overcast today, but still pretty sunny compared to most places. And I think I'm just a serial entrepreneur. I describe myself as an entrepreneur, a teacher, a lifelong learner, an international traveler. I've been to about 40 countries now, and I just love doing fun, good stuff with like-minded people to sum myself up.
That's awesome, Laura. Yeah, I mean, you've always been an entrepreneur. We've known each other for quite some time now. I helped you hit Amazon bestseller. You helped Saba hit Amazon bestseller.
Yes.
We're all helping out each other. But to get us really started here, take us back to when you first figured out that you're an entrepreneur, that you wanted to start this tutoring business, and we'll just kind of run through the course until you hit Amazon bestseller and talk about what you have going on these days. So get us going here first about the tutoring company.
Yeah. So my background is I was a big nerd in school. So neither of my birth parents graduated college. So they just told me all you need to do in life to be successful is to do well in school, get the best grades you can, go to the best college you can, and then get a great job and work your way up and you'll be fine. And so I was like, okay, I'll go do that. And I got a bunch of A's and I ended up going to UCLA for undergrad, which was my top choice school. And I was planning on becoming a professor in psychology. So I was on the track to do a PhD in psychology and just kind of work my way up the academia ladder. But when I was 21, I just returned home from living a year in Germany, studying abroad. And my dad gave me the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And have you guys read that?
I haven't, no.
I've not, but it's on my list. I've been going through a lot of books recently.
Oh, it's a good one. For me, it's like the top foundational book that I recommend to people, just around changing your mindset about how you're kind of taught in school and by traditional parents and society, but just to kind of get your mind wrapped around the importance of building businesses and investing and understanding how money actually works. So I read that at 21, just after I had backpacked all around Europe and lived abroad for an entire year. And those 2 things combined just completely changed the course of my life. So I knew from there that I wanted to travel around the world and start businesses and own real estate and all this stuff. So I graduated early and I actually started working with a real estate agent. She had been my parents' agent years ago. So I was, 21 at the time. And when my parents had used her, I was around 12. So it had been a long time since we had even talked, but I reached out to her and said, I'd love to learn more about real estate. So I actually got my real estate license. This is 2003. And I was working with her, and then I realized, though, my travel bug was too strong to just stay in one place, because I grew up in Orange County, California, and that's where the realtor was. And I realized if you want to have a really good career as an agent, you need to stay in one place, because you got to build up your portfolio and become known in that world or in that community. And so I didn't want to do that. So my travel was just too strong. So I ended up moving to Arizona, where it was cheaper to be able to buy a house. And I lived in Arizona for about 10 years. During that time, I tried to start different companies. And a funny example is I tried to do a balloon animal company.
Tell us about that.
I know, right? It's a funny one. So I actually took a course. It was a Rich Dad Poor Dad course, because Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote that book, he was living in Scottsdale, Arizona. And so the community colleges of the area would actually offer courses around real estate investing or starting a business and things like that, kind of under the umbrella of Rich Dad. And so I took a course and I met these two guys, and we three just hit it off, and we decided, let's start a company together. So one of the two guys, he was really good at making balloon animals, and he would go to different restaurants or kids' parties, and he would just make balloon animals, and he would just work off of tips. So he didn't charge for them, but parents would, give him $5, $10 or something, just like as a tip. And it would add up, and he would make a couple $100, like just going to one of these parties. And so we're like, okay, why don't we be the middleman? So let's go find parents and people who want to have parties where a balloon animal artist would be. And let's find balloon animal artists, and we'll match them together and then take a cut for the work of matching them up and, keeping track of everything. So that was our plan. And we made this little binder booklet of like examples of kids at parties with balloon animals and all this stuff. So we didn't get very far, because what happened was every time we would have a team meeting, we would all show up, and I was the only one who had done my homework that I said I was going to do. But the other guys would always have an excuse, like, oh, something came up, I wasn't able to do this. And I was like, oh my gosh. So that was kind of a good lesson in picking a good partner, because you have to find someone who's going to be just as committed and just as on board as you are if you want something to be successful in a business, if you're going to have a partner. So that's kind of a funny example of something that just like didn't really work out, but I learned, and so I tried a few more things, but nothing really came together for me. And I ended up running back to what I know best, education. So I ended up doing my master's and teaching at the high school level for about 5 years. So I taught honors math and AP psychology. And during every single school break that there ever was, I was on the first plane out of the country the second I could get out of school. And I didn't come back until like the second I had to be back. So that's part of the way I racked up about 40 countries of visiting, is I was just always traveling as a teacher during all the breaks that I had.
Laura,
And,
what made you like traveling so much? Like, what was the experience like when you were abroad at these countries?
Yeah, it's funny because as a kid, I never left the country till I was 18. My parents didn't have a ton of money, so it wasn't like, oh, let's go to France for a weekend. It was like,
yeah,
it was more like, let's go camping, which I hated, but oh well, that's what you got to do when you're, a kid. So I feel like it was just a whole, just worlds literally opened up to me, because I remember feeling so fortunate that I grew up in Southern California, which I still am. I feel very lucky. It's a great place for weather and activities and everything. But it wasn't until I visited other places that I realized, wow, you can be lucky to be from so many places in the world. There's so much more than I thought in my little microcosm world of, where I grew up. So I feel like the experiences that you get to grow as a person, to open your mind, to try new things in terms of food or activities, or even just to really challenge what you accept as normal and appropriate and right, because people do it differently. And it doesn't mean they're right or you're right. It's just different, but you're forced to be in a situation where everything you've been taught is like wrong or just different. I don't know. It's just such a growing experience and opportunity to really get out there and live abroad and be a part of a new culture. I just find it fascinating and really a growth experience, if that answers your question.
No, yeah, that's for sure. Because I know I really like to travel also. So I just kind of wanted to get like your insight about like you've been to so many different countries. So I was like, wow, that's probably like a really great experience. But
Yeah.
how did you get into like podcasting? So you taught for a couple of years. So how did like
Mm.
podcasting come along?
Yeah. So after I had taught for about 5 years, I loved it and I absolutely loved working with the students. But for me, I just looked around at the other teachers who were lifelong teachers and I just knew I was different. I was like, this isn't me. I can't do it. It's too in the box still, even though I could travel a lot. So I decided to just completely jump ship and burn the bridges. And I didn't have everything planned out, but I just said, I have to start a business. It's something that I've wanted to do since I was 21 and I was just about to turn 30 at the time. And through a mutual friend, I ended up meeting this guy named Todd Van Duzer, who ended up becoming my business partner in the tutoring company. And so he had strengths where I had weaknesses. So, for example, he's great with sales and marketing. I've become better in those things as I've gotten experience. But in the very beginning, I was more suited for HR, hiring, curriculum development, creative stuff, the writing, like the blog and stuff. And he was better at sales and being on the phone and closing the deals and those kinds of things. So we were a really good match in where we had strengths and weaknesses. It was a good fit. And so that was about 6 years ago now that we started a company called Student Tutor, and it's still live and growing today. Actually, just talked with Todd yesterday and did a little presentation for a mastermind that he started. So he's kind of taken the company in a different direction. It still does tutoring and test prep, but now it's also focusing on doing group masterminds for teenagers around finding their purpose and starting a business online and doing all these really cool things that you don't learn in school. So I actually taught a course last night on podcasting for the students in there. But day to day, I'm not involved in that company anymore because, to kind of answer your question, over the past few years, I got a lot more interested in digital marketing. And a friend of mine is the podcast host for the Internet Marketing Association, which is an association with over 1 million members around the globe. And he's the official podcast host. And he asked me, hey, would you listen to all my podcasts before they go live and write up the show notes, do social media, create images, and help me promote it and share it? And I was like, yeah, that sounds fun. And I just did it for fun. And he paid me a couple $100. And I was like, it's just something to do on the side. And so I just got really into podcasting as a listener and then on the back end, helping him. And then about 1.5 years ago, we said, hey, well, what we're doing together is a great business for other companies. Basically, he was stronger in the audio editing and I was doing all the content afterwards. And we're like, let's offer this as a company. So we started a company called Podtent Marketing and just started getting clients purely from word of mouth and our own networks. And so I started my own podcast, which is called Copy That Pops. And I talk about writing tips and applying psychology to success for business online. And I started that about 1 year ago. So like April of 2016. But I've actually been working on podcasts and in podcasting for far longer than that and on far more shows than just my own. So that's kind of how I got into it. It was sort of a coincidence. Just a friend that I knew was involved in it. And I just kind of started helping him out and it really grew from there.
So as you were growing this, were there any hiccups along the way, or was it a struggle most of the time, or were you able to really gain traction when you were growing Podtent Marketing?
So for Podtent, my business partner in there, he and I both had other projects going at the same time, as I was still involved with Student Tutor at that time and starting my own podcast. And he has a full-time job. He's really high up in an educational company in Arizona. So that was sort of like a side project for us. And we were totally fine with it growing very slowly and organically just from word of mouth and our network. So we didn't put any money into advertising or anything like that. It was just kind of as clients came in, we would start accepting them and hiring other people to help us with the workload and starting to systematize and document all of our steps so that we could train people faster and easier to bring them on to help us out. So that we didn't run into really any hiccups on that one just because it was such a natural organic growth. I definitely have a million more stories with Student Tutor because we definitely tried a lot of different things to, figure out what would work. And, it's always an evolving process as an entrepreneur. You always have to keep on testing and trying stuff.
So go on, Saba.
So Laura, so I know obviously Dan and we started our podcast in January. So I know a lot of people nowadays podcasting is getting so popular. So if somebody were to start a podcast, what are the first couple of steps that you would tell them to do before they even pick out a name and do all of that stuff on iTunes and stuff like that? What's the first steps that you would tell somebody to do if they are wanting to start a podcast?
That's a good question. So before I answer the first steps, I would say one stat that I love to share with people is that as of 2016, 50% of the US actually even knew what podcasting was, as a word. So to me, that indicates a huge opportunity for growth as more and more people know what podcasting is and decide to jump in and start listening. So it's not something that's crazy oversaturated, even though you're hearing about it more compared to blogs. It is not saturated at all. So it's definitely still a great medium to get in on and be a somewhat early adopter. So I just say that as a word of encouragement. In terms of getting started, my first thing is I would say you need to be a consumer of different podcasts, listening, and just see what you like, see what connects with you. So for me in particular, my favorite podcasts are Tim Ferriss, The Tim Ferriss Show. He wrote The 4-Hour Workweek, which I call my Bible. I don't think I'll ever get to only 4 hours of working per week. I don't think I'm that good at systematizing, but I just love the principles behind what he talks about in there. And he's a big on travel and experiences and stuff too. So his podcast show is just absolutely fascinating and interviews the most amazing people. And the shows often go an hour and a half long. And I would be fine if they were longer because they're awesome. I also love Gary V. So Gary Vaynerchuk's podcast, and his are a mix of really short ones and then also long keynotes. I personally only tend to listen to podcasts that are really around business just because I like to kind of keep my head full of that stuff as I'm walking the dog and doing dishes and things. But I would also recommend to listen to other ones in different genres and see if there's anything that really connects with you. And that could be around the show format or the length or the way that the host asks questions or even the music intro and the music outro, just to kind of get a good sampling of the other things out there and see what you like and what you connect with so that you can get ideas for how you want to craft your own.
And then, Laura, you actually wrote your book, so this is what we're getting into after all of this. Let's start talking about your Amazon best-selling book. And pretty much just, take it. I know how it happened, but let's hear about your side of things. How was the process for you? And tell us about, the whole process of becoming an Amazon bestseller for yourself.
Yeah, so the way that we all met was we all jumped into an accelerator program with Brandon T. Adams, and he's best well known for crowdfunding. So he did the crowdfunding campaigns for John Lee Dumas, for example, the Freedom Journal and the Mastery Journal. They raised almost $500,000 in 33 days for the first campaign that they did together. So it's pretty incredible. So he started to do mastermind accelerators, and we all jumped in that first one together, and that's how we all met, the three of us. And Brandon said to me, why don't you have a book yet? Because he saw the emails I was writing to him were super detailed, really long, but clear. And he was like, you've got to have a book, right? And I said, oh, no, not yet. He was like, why not? And at the exact same time, I had two other people who I really respect their opinions basically say you should write a book. One is Eric Yang. I don't know if you guys have met him yet, but he's an amazing entrepreneur. I'll definitely connect you. He's 21 and just killing it, doing awesome stuff. And then the other is James Altucher, who is also a huge podcaster. I saw him at Thrive and asked him a question, and he recommended writing a book. So all three of these guys at the same time said you should write a book. And during our accelerator, I felt extra motivated to really just put a short deadline on something and jump into it. So I decided to write it and publish it in 30 days with the hopes of hitting Amazon bestseller. And so while I was writing, I also was researching how to do that. And I realized it comes down to two main things. One is the categories that you pick. And I'm not talking about just like picking categories that aren't relevant just so you can scam the system, but to actually look at ones that are relevant and see which ones are less competitive than others. And then the second one is around marketing, which is where you, Dan, helped me a ton, is as you're going through the process of writing it, why not start promoting it even before it's live? So you really helped me to like keep on sharing things every single day. Even I remember there were times when I was so tired and so busy writing and doing all this other stuff, and I was still, working on companies, not like those companies and clients stopped. You would text me and say, hey, you got to share something. It's Wednesday wins. Go share a win that you had today. I was like, okay, it's good that you're pushing me. So I would get on there and I would do a Facebook Live, for example, and just share the process and share what was going on. And with your help, I created an event page and invited people to that, and just really doing consistent marketing for the entire 30 days. And, not every single day, but a good chunk of them really helped show people that I was serious and build up some excitement, make them feel like they were a part of the journey because they really saw it from day one all the way to the end. And so with that combination of some targeted marketing, and I didn't even spend a single dollar on Facebook ads at all, and picking the right categories, then I was able to hit bestseller. And with fewer sales than people would probably think, it's actually not as hard as you would think if you kind of have that right recipe combined. And that was in November of 2016. And then so far this year in 2017, I've helped 4 people, including Saba, hit bestseller. So yeah, now I'm working on a course to kind of put all those pieces together so people can apply it themselves and get that title and use it as leverage to maybe book some speaking gigs, or, maybe that's the reason that someone hires you instead of someone else, because they see that you're more of the authority in your field because you wrote the book, the best-selling book on the topic that you're in.
Laura, so what made you create a course about becoming an Amazon bestseller? Because I know obviously you helped me coach through the entire process, which thank you again, because I did hit Amazon bestseller in 2 categories the day of, so that was really exciting. But what made you actually want to create a course about this?
Well, I love helping people do this. It's so fun. But I'm just one person and I'm running other businesses and other things too. So I thought the best way was to make a course on it with the details and even include case studies. So you're going to be in my course. What we talked about, I'm going to actually put that in the course so people can see someone really going through it and really, applying it to someone as a legit example that they can see. It's not just in theory. And it's just kind of a way to replicate myself a bit more and just be able to help more people at a higher scale. And then I am going to offer a package for people if they want to get one-on-one help with just me as well as an upsell. So if someone's like, well, I really would love your eyes on what I'm doing, then they can do that too. But I just can't do it for everyone because otherwise I'll never get anything else done.
That's awesome. So, Laura, I know you have the course coming out very soon. When does that actually officially launch? Have you decided yet?
That's such a good question. So let's see. I'm working on it right now. I would say I'm about 60% done as we're recording this. And I know that this isn't going to go live for a couple of weeks. So I would say when this is live, 100%, there will be a landing page so that you can put your information in and be notified that when it goes live, if it's not already. And so I'll share the link, copythatpops.com/bestseller. So if you go to copythatpops.com/bestseller, the course will either be there for you to jump in right away, or it'll be hey, put in your email and I'll notify you as well. And we can make a discount as well for your listeners. Let me think. let's just say, okay, go there and mention Dan and Saba from dorm rooms to conference rooms, and you'll get a really nice discount and some bonuses.
It's awesome. So Laura, as always, I'm going to hold you to, you're going to have that all ready by May 19th, just so you know the date for yourself there.
Okay, good. Let me write this down. May 19th. So if you're listening to this now, May 19th or after, it will be 100% ready to go, I swear.
So I'll just hold you to that really quick, just so you know. But guys, I definitely check out that course. Like, it's going to be awesome. I mean, Laura, you're an amazing writer. Like, I think I've had you look at some of my blog posts before and things like that. Like, you're just so insightful with it. I mean, like you said, you might have been the nerd when you were in school, but sometimes the nerds are the ones that always succeed at the end of the day. So,
thank you.
Yeah, it's definitely, you got to be a student, right? And what other things do you just have going on in your life that you want to let people know about? That's really just, what are some big moves that Laura Petersen's making right now besides the course? I'm sure there's something.
Well, I guess the biggest other thing really is that I teamed up with Brandon T. Adams, and now I'm a business partner with him. So I met him in October along with you guys, and I just blew him away with what I could do, because one of the homework assignments that he gave me was to find an influencer and offer to do work for them for free, just because you never know where it can lead. Maybe they'll hire you, maybe they'll refer you to other people, but it's a great way to really up-level your network and start being associated with the people that you want to become or the people you want to surround yourself with. And so I made a list of 5 people, and then at the end I said, well, and a 6th one is you, because he had a podcast, but I knew that he was still doing a lot of the work on his own. And so he was like, oh, okay, yeah, that'd be awesome. So I started to, he gave me one file and I edited it. And then I was like, how do you want it to get live? Do you want me to upload it to your web host? He's like, oh, you can do that? I'm like, yeah. He's like, okay. And I was like, oh, do you want me to do the show notes? Oh, you can do that? And I just kept saying yes, 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 yes. And I just did everything. I just took everything over in a very short period of time. And I just went above and beyond with attention to detail and really high quality stuff. And it just got to the point where he was like, you have to be on my team because you're bringing so much value. I really want to be a partner with you. So now I'm officially a co-founder of Live to Grind and Accelerate Media Group, in working with Brandon and a couple other folks, and Saba helps out a ton as well. So that's another big thing that I'm really focused on these days.
That's awesome, Laura. That's super exciting. Just how, like, when you keep adding value to somebody, like, that's how you get those like big successes. But just to kind of wrap things up here, what's like a favorite quote that you really live by day to day? And then where can people find you at, Laura?
Yeah, so I would say one thing that really resonates with me that I love to share with everyone is that quote. I don't know who said it or if I'm even saying it perfectly, but you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I think that is so true. And it's not just in business, but really, I would recommend that everyone take a hard look around, or even just write down a piece of paper. Who are the 5 people that you talk to the most, text the most, hang out with the most, and what are their values? Where are they going? Because whatever those things are, it rubs off on you. And if you want to get to a higher position or a higher place and hit your big goals, you want to surround yourself by other people who are working as hard as you are or are already there. That's going to make a huge difference. And tough love, even if that means that some people are actually members of your family, or maybe you've known them since 2nd grade, if they're not a great influence on you, I really think that you should spend less time with them. It doesn't mean be mean to them or cut them out completely, but really take a hard look at what are the influences around you, because we are so social. We are such social creatures. Our psychology, we can't help but rub off on each other. So if you want to hit huge goals, you need to be surrounded by the right people to help you get there. So that's my number one quote and recommendation. And then I would say the best place to get started and learn more is to go to copythatpops.com. And you can find my show and links to the course and all this other stuff. And then on social media, you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat with the handle Laptop Laura.
That's awesome. Thanks, Laura, for always coming on, hanging out with us as always. I really need to get back into the Live to Grind team. I've just been so busy with lacrosse season and all that going on, and now working with Hector doing our little digital marketing business that we're starting up right now. But I really need to jump back in with you guys. You guys are a lot of fun. You guys are great people to hang out with. Like, you know, I was a part of that for a while. You know, I was a part of that for a little bit and helping out and stuff like that. I really need to get back into it. And guys, I always say that quote as well. I swear, I think Brandon brainwashed us to love that quote, but it's so true.
It's so true.
It's so true. Like, you got to really look at who you're with, because, you know, like I always say on the show too, if you want to be a millionaire, hang out with billionaires, you'll get there faster. It's the same thing, guys. Constantly audit your group. Make sure they're people you want to be around. Make sure they have similar goals to you. Make sure it's everything you want to do, because, you know, birds of a feather flock together. So really pay attention to who you guys hang out with. Like I said, go find Laura's course at copythatpops.com/bestseller. That comes out when this episode airs, or at least there will be a landing page for that so she can notify you. But you can find her more directly at copythatpops.com, and you can find us at dr2cr.com. Saba, what are some final words?
Laura, thank you so much for coming on today. I always love talking to you about, like, whether it's bestsellers or podcasting, but guys, definitely check out her course when it's out. But thank you guys so much today on listening on Dorm Rooms to Conference Rooms.
Thanks, Laura.
Thanks, Laura.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Dorm Rooms and Conference Rooms. Don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you haven't joined our accelerator program yet, you can find that at livetogrind.com/college, where we connect you with today's latest influencers and experts in their fields.